We are live. Hi, everyone. This is Nancy Hoffman-Baniak, and I'm CEO of the Greater San Fernando Valley Chamber of Commerce. And I'm joined here today by my good friends from the Culver City Chamber and the West Hollywood Chamber, Colin Diaz and Genevieve Murrill. And what we want to talk to you today about is the California Coalition for Safe Reopening. I'm sure many of you know, and we're assuming mostly businesses are following us today because the chambers are business oriented, of course. That it's been a hard month with the governor putting the dimmer switch on a lot of our industries, and then LA County even making that even stricter. So together, Colin and Genevieve put together this coalition. We now have 36 business organizations and chambers of commerce in the state of California and growing, working on a 3-point plan to make it, what do we want to say, more easier for businesses so they don't have to be going back and forth like a yo-yo with all of these reopenings and not having everything being done with a broad brush. So right now I want to introduce Colin, who's going to tell you more about the California Coalition for Safe Reopening, and it's up to you, Colin.
Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate joining you today. As Nancy mentioned, I'm President and CEO of the Culver City Chamber, but I'm also the chair of WC3, which is the West Side Council of Chambers of Commerce, which is 13 chambers across the west side of Los Angeles. About a week ago, we all got together. In fact, Genevieve and I think maybe as the governor was making his announcement to close 19 counties for indoor dining, for bars, for card rooms, wineries, and tasting rooms. We understood the reasoning behind it. Obviously, we know that I want to preface this to say that the health and safety is the utmost importance. But at the same time, we've also spoken from day one that as we reopen, and we needed to do so in a way that was going to be sustainable and safe. We have businesses that have spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to create safe work environments, adhering to the county protocols, state protocols, and even their city protocols as it relates to reopening, and any type of platform or method, that would lead to continual reclosures is not going to be sustainable for businesses. And ultimately, in the long run, we're going to see a lot of our sector go away. So Genevieve and I, with the help of her board chair, Nick Remedio, got together and started to really, it was really a calling of all arms. So we reached out to BizFed, we reached out to the folks on WC3, we reached out to folks throughout the county, we reached out to Nancy out in San Fernando Valley, and got all the stakeholders together to really hone in on what are the areas that we can address to assist the state in helping in not only a safe reopening, but a sustained reopening. So I won't get too much further into the weeds. I think Genevieve can probably weigh in a little bit more on what the 3 points are, but that was the impetus for what started us down that path.
Genevieve, you want to talk about the 3-point plan and explain it to our viewers?
Sure. Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Colin. We wouldn't have gotten this far without colleagues like yourself. This has been an amazing partnership ever since COVID started back in March. We have been so collectively in force on our messaging as chambers of commerce, and so I just am grateful to all our partners out there and everyone who came on board, and they're still coming, they're still joining the coalition. So we hope to send a strong message to our cities, our county, and our government. And the 3-point plan is really is asking the government to look at long-range planning for living with COVID right now without a cure, and that shutting down the economy, as Colin said, opening and closing every time there's a spike is not really the way to move forward. And one of the things that my chairman, Nick Remedio, mentioned at a city council meeting one time was that if we don't think that the economy, the crash of the economy, is a public health issue, then we are not thinking straight. With the economy crashing, with vacancies, we'll have vagrancies, we'll increase homelessness. It is a public safety issue to not help to save our economy in the midst of COVID. So we hope to send the message for 3 points that we want to cover. And I do credit the county for increasing enforcement impeachment just recently. That's number one of our plan. We'd like to see more enforcement really out so that the bad actors that aren't behaving properly, both public and business, are taken care of, and that they do not cause other businesses that are following protocols to be shut down because of those bad actors. We believe that, as Colin said, our businesses have spent tens of thousands, just a lot of money on reopening, following the protocols, putting plexiglass in, creating outdoor environments, buying PPE product, hiring back staff, and all the things that they need to get open only to be closed again. We want that enforcement taken care of. Number two, we'd like to create an emergency business interruption fund. If this is the methodology the government has for COVID of up and down, opening, closing businesses, we need some relief for those businesses to cover the expenses that they continue to incur. And then number three, we'd like a task force created. The governor just created a task force, and that's great. And it's a wonderful first step. We'd like this task force to really look at how we continue to move forward with an open economy in the face of COVID. And that means recovery centers, more testing, more mobile testing centers for different communities. It means enforcement again on the masks and the public social spacing. It means having mandatory checks or digital readers. We don't know exactly, but the task force would define how we move forward with living with COVID in our midst, because we believe that if this comes back in the fall, if the only method is to shut down business industries, then we're never going to recover, and we really need to see some relief. So that's the short of it.
I just wanted to add sorry, Nancy, just one other quick thing that bears noting. You know, currently LA County has their resiliency task force, which is made up of, I think, 13 sectors, ranging from, from retail to hospitality to entertainment and film, and a myriad of small business. And a lot of our businesses are on that, and they've been doing a lot of work for the past couple of months, looking at how to safely reopen. What this coalition is really essentially doing is taking that a step further and moving towards swifter action, because it is true with every round of closures and the uncertainty. I mean, you are a leader of a chamber as well, and in our business community, the last thing a business owner wants is uncertainty. I mean, predictability, at least for what they can control, is something that helps all businesses. So just want to reiterate that we acknowledge and appreciate the work that committee is doing and the work that they have with the county supervisors. And we realize, not just in LA County, but throughout the state, that's something that's going to remain important. So go ahead, Nancy, sorry.
Oh, no problem. So, I know I had a few questions that didn't come in the queue, but I had them earlier. But I just want to mention this to all of our viewers, that chambers by nature, we are champions for a stronger community. And as Colin mentioned, stronger it's the economic health, but we want everyone to reopen with care and reopen safely. And as Genevieve mentioned, the bad actors. I know the night before the new rollback, I had two businesses who had county health in there, two food businesses, that gave them big seal of approval, big check. You guys are good to go, keep on operating. And then literally the next day shut down because the bad actors are damaging the good ones. And that's what us as chambers of commerce and the business organizations involved are trying to work towards, is being that champion of a strong community. And and then it's fine because we, as chambers, a lot of us, we belong to organizations. We consider ourselves a 3C chamber, where we're the conveners of influences of leaders, and we're catalysts for business growth. And so, with that, we understand that there's a delicate balance here. We care about the health and safety. It's not just we want a business to open. They have their employees to worry about. They have their customers to worry about. They all go home to their families. I mean, the trickle down of how they care is so much greater than people, I think not everyone realizes. I know many times on my Facebook Live, I talk about respecting businesses' policies they put in place, because they're doing that so they can continue to operate. When businesses received the dimmer switch the other day, it wasn't just the outlying costs that they had. Their employees, who now are off of unemployment because they got rehired back, now had to file unemployment again and have to go through the waiting period again. So once again, these employees don't have a source of income either. So this is really widespread. And that's why chambers of commerce, I mean, we've always worked well together. We're one of the few industries that we share things like no other industry I've ever been in. And we've taken it up a notch, and we've teamed up constantly. And I know a lot of my viewers, I think yours do too, know about the Safe Small Business Coalition, which is a federal, actually Safe Small Business Coalition, yeah, it's national. We're working towards a recovery plan for businesses, and we're all part of America's Recovery Fund Coalition. But this is different. This is just right now at California, because we need to do something now to keep our businesses open and not have different counties under different ordinances. And on top of that, those counties making stricter ordinances, and then the city maybe making a stricter ordinance. And that's why Colin and Jen got us all together, so we can sit there and keep you in business. And so I know that one of the questions someone said was, how is this going to be funded? So Colin, I know you answered that question. I mean, the Business Interruption Fund, how is that going to be? Before you answer, I want to mention this really quick. So when we were doing Safe Small Business Coalition, we found out 60% of businesses did not have business interruption insurance. And those that didn't even qualify for business interruption insurance. In fact, none of them did. So creating a fund is a different angle. And I want Colin to talk a little bit about that and how it's going to work.
So thank you for the question. You know, that's something that we've been asked a couple of times throughout the process. And the governor and the budget that he had proposed and later revised had scaled back from really using a lot of the rainy day funds that the state has been able to acquire over the last couple of years. And essentially looking at this period, I mean, what other period than now would you say is a time to look at using rainy day funds, particularly because if we don't take these steps, let's say we don't have any type of action or funding that goes towards this, and more businesses close, we're one of the largest economies in the world as a state. I mean, particularly LA County as a whole has a pretty large revenue stream. So when a lot of that dries up, this is going to be a ripple effect that the state is going to be dealing with for years to come. So it's essentially utilizing some of that to assist businesses so that they can go back to driving revenue to the state, employing people throughout the state, and doing so, as everybody has continually said, in a safe manner. I want to again reiterate, this is not about getting over on or opening up too quickly or not doing it safely. I would invite people that have not gone out yet to look at businesses that have taken steps, whether it's plexiglass, whether it's their protocol, whether it's the safety procedures that their staff have. In a lot of scenarios, the businesses that are opening up, the good actors, have safer environments than a lot of people do, whether it be in their normal, day-to-day activities, public spaces. So I think that's a large part that gets lost in all this, is you see businesses open, you see, different factors that go on, of which there's probably 30 or 40 that are impacting why we're seeing the increase. And then businesses are closed and it's being cited as they're the cause for this increase. And that's a large piece that is very inaccurate in some sectors. And part of the reason why, yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, well, yeah, I finished your thought, Colin.
No, I was gonna say, and part of the reason why, there are a lot of businesses that are saying, look at us, we are going above and beyond. We want you to come and inspect us. In fact, Nancy, you and I were on a call with the county health department last week, and one of the things they said, I think they have 800 inspectors for all of LA County. I mean, as good as they can be, that's not enough to get to all the businesses. So it's challenging
And one thing they also said was sometimes when they were saying 80% of the businesses aren't complying, that doesn't mean they're not having PPE. Yeah. Some of them just don't have posted the protocols. Yeah. So if you're not aware, every industry has a list of protocols. Some of them are as short as 7 pages. Some of them are as long as 16 pages. Mm-hmm. And each business has to go through that checklist and then post it for their employees to see. And then a business and a consumer like you and I can ask for it. So they were saying that many of those businesses were just being cited because they weren't listing the protocols. So you can't assume that they're not having a clean environment. It could be something as simple as not putting up that piece of paper.
And thank you, Nancy. That's all I was going to interject was exactly that, we had a business that got cited because they had their doors open doing curbside, but they weren't allowing anyone in. But because they hadn't blocked the doors, they got cited by county. So I think there's a little bit of skewed on the numbers. And again, we're not denying that there are some bad actors out there that are violating the protocols, that aren't staying safe. And we think that they should be shut down if they're not, or cited, or whatever the reprimand is, or the recourse is. That has to happen so that these other businesses can thrive that have gone to the expense of following the safe protocols. And I just want to add another thing about funding. In addition to Nancy's Save Small Business Coalition and America for Recovery Fund, there was another in the federal plan, and this may come from that, but some of the things we thought of our point three of living with COVID, the funding might come from, a lot of times, if we bring back our economy, we can bring back our employees. That'll relieve unemployment. It'll relieve the additional unemployment that was granted to these employees, that a lot of businesses are having a hard time hiring back because they're making more money on unemployment. And we don't deny them that. It's just that we need to relieve some of that money to put it into the businesses open now, or keeping them open, and back into the economy. And so there is money out there in other ways that's being spent towards COVID, that if we look at a long range plan, might make our money go further than how it's being spent right now.
Now, I want to bring something up because people glance at the 3 points and they don't, and I think there's a misunderstanding that we're not spelling out what PPE is required. We're saying to businesses they need to follow whatever their county health department protocol is. So my quick little lesson in civics and government is the California Department of Public Health writes these ordinances and their guidance to each county. The governor then writes an executive order saying that those protocols are what's going to be sent down to the counties. Each county health department has to then implement those orders, and they can make it stricter or they could keep it just where it is. So that's kind of how the chain happens. Yep. But when that happens is each county has to look at the different protocols. So someone had said to us, well, your 3 points don't include masks, because we're saying in the protocol, and I know Jen, you may have it open, but let me just tell you really quick, is that we want let me just read them to you really fast. Require the state to use emergency funds, which is what Colin mentioned, to supplement funding for the county. And we want this grant money, to go to the reopening of restaurants and bars that demonstrate compliance with that county's opening regulations. So what we're talking about is we don't need to spell out masks. It's in the opening regulations. So if we're not spelling something out down to the nitty gritty, please familiarize yourself with what the opening regulations are for each county, and the PPE and all those type of things, because we're not a county health department. We're not going to sit there and be, as chambers, to sit there and write down these little nitty gritty things. Our job in many ways is compliance. Just like when we, I think all of us, we sell those employer poster sets that you need to have posted. So, for all the different minimum wage, et cetera, chambers of commerce, many times we sell that. We help our members stay in compliance with laws, rules, orders. And this is no different. What we're doing is we're trying to help. It's another component to our compliance efforts that we do for our members. And so if you have a question and you're unsure, look at the ordinances. If you don't know where to find them, I'm sure we all have it on our different websites. For us, it's SFV, like San Fernando Valley resource.com, and there is a link to the county ordinance for the city of LA. And then from there, you can go to Roadmap to Recovery. There's a lot of links. And then from there, you can look at all the nitty gritty details. And I know even for us to go back to our offices, there's office openings that we have to print. And it's like 16 pages long for us to just reopen our office for business. So there are a lot of businesses who haven't sent their employees back to work. They're still working from home. And so right now we're looking at bars and restaurants because that seems to be where the focus is right now. But the governor may talk today about hair salons. It might be another one that may come out today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the other thing, and I don't know, one of you can answer this. So through the Safe Small Business Coalition, we did a survey nationwide asking businesses if they receive PPP. And the reason why we did that is, as you know, many of our viewers, I'm sure, are watching, some of them didn't apply for PPP because they weren't sure they would get the forgiveness, or they didn't qualify, or they missed that deadline, or the money was already taken away by some big corporation. So many different reasons. Some of them just didn't feel they needed it at the time, thinking we were going to be fully reopened by now. So we asked them, if they don't receive additional financial help, would they still be in business in September? 75% of the businesses responding said they do not think that they can be in business in September without some sort of financial help. So as Genevieve mentioned, we're not necessarily, and we're looking at, for a Safe Small Business, more of a grant or some sort of forgivable loan, but they're looking for some sort of help, period. Closing them down again is not helpful. It just puts them that much more in the hole. And so with that, I know Genevieve, you had got us on NBC4 today, and it was awesome. And I know you guys were talking about, and Colin too, like that ticking back, how many businesses, what's going to do the economy. Anyone want to chime in on that?
I'll let you start, Jen.
No, you go ahead, Colin.
Well, I will say, I think it's, you know, that 75%, as high as it is probably conservative now, because that was taking into consideration businesses that were probably not even open yet. So if you spent, call it $5,000, $10,000 to get your business.
We did ask them if some of them are reopened, but you're right. The number of them that were not reopened yet was pretty high.
But even so, let's say that they still spent $10,000, you know, between training, between getting PPE supplies and all this. And from a predictability standpoint, you're expecting to open June 15th. And let's say you do, to then close again, and then have all these other expenses, and know that there may be, you know, the goalpost, so to speak, may move by the time you reopen. I think, I mean, I stand by what I've said before, that number, unfortunately, is going to increase, and we're going to see more and more of, you know, our Main Street small businesses that everybody's come to know and love go away, as you're starting to see also with even the larger businesses. It's just not a sustainable business model. It's not something that's fiscally feasible.
Yeah, Colin said this earlier, you know, I think a lot of people don't understand how thin the margin is that businesses operate on. They mostly operate between a 4 and 2% margin. That's their net. So, you know, we're talking really constant operations to keep them in business. And we've had businesses that spent upwards of $70,000 to get ready, $38,000 unloading a truck on product and produce they just had to throw away because then they got shut down again. Don't forget that the bars and the restaurants got open on May 30th. Less than 2 days later, they got shut down by the city, by certain cities or counties because of protests and curfews and marches. Then they had to go to the expense of boarding up as well to protect their property. They then were able to reopen 2 weeks later, and then less than 10 days later, they got shut down again. So this opening and closing expense is hugely costly. We have a little pizza place, vegan pizza place just opened, and even with the protests, when we shut them down again during protests, they said, I don't know if I can last another day like this. So it's really challenging right now. And don't forget that we still have not opened nightclubs and comedy stores and concert venues. These venues were told that they could convert to bars at least to bring in some revenue. Now, the inconsistencies of some of the protocols in industries, as an example, houses of worship can open and you can have a preacher and you can have socially distanced people in the seats, but you can't have a comedian with socially different seats. Now, what is the difference of that? So there's a lot of inconsistencies on certain industries, and what we're trying to also communicate, and it's not in this plan, but we've also been communicating to the county, we want you to look at uses versus category of business. So if a business converts to streaming something as a concert venue, streaming somebody singing as opposed with a crew of 3 as opposed to social gathering, they should be allowed to do those things. So we're trying, the businesses are trying to pivot to try to bring in some sort of businesses. Don't forget, some sectors have been completely shut down and still have not even reopened at all. So we really want to get the whole economy back open, and I'm very concerned about the announcement today that other sectors may be closed down today.
And Jen, I wanted to
go on, Colin.
I wanted to piggyback off that point, and Nancy, you might be kind of rounding towards this too. For those that are in sectors that are still, you know, remaining open, and, you know, let's say you're not a restaurant, let's say you're in another space and you've been able to maintain being open, something that's vitally important to realize is your segment or your sector could be next, and very likely, if there's not some type of consistencies put in place, will be next. So we've all, I would hope when we round this out, I always like to end things with a call to action, and so maybe Nancy is eventually getting to that. But we've created a very easy sign-on letter for businesses, for organizations, that all they need to do is to be able to click on the link, and it'll take you directly. You enter very brief information, your name, address, and then your zip code, which will then send that to the state and assembly member in your region.
And I just put it up. It shows West Hollywood Chamber, but it's on every. So this is being fed live to the different Facebook pages of West Hollywood Chamber, Culver City Chamber, Greater San Fernando Valley, and in the comments is already how to contact your legislator. And as Colin mentioned, it's very, very easy. It is one click. I'm going to put it. That's the wrong one. That's America's Recovery Fund. How do you like that? So here's the bottom. We're telling you to contact your legislators for the safe reopening. And like I said, we've made it very easy. It just takes one click. And I made a tiny URL. So if someone's just writing this down, tinyurl.com at open and safe or /open and safe. But it is in the comment box. You can just copy it and go to that link. And the letters there, you just put in your address, like Colin said, and up pops your legislators. And really quick, because we have been spending all morning reaching out to our legislators. And I was very happy to get a response back from Supervisor Barger's office, because they also received the coalition letter. And they say that most recent data shows very promising and encouraging compliance levels by businesses, most in the high 90s. And they're considering various options and methods we can help keep businesses open, because they're very concerned about the economic impact. Now, we were talking about this before we came online. Not every council supervisor looks at this the same way. Some of them are very glass half open. Some of them are very glass half full. So the coalition is going to continue to work on that, because a lot of it is education. And I want to bring this up too, because Colin and I were on a call last week sponsored by the Torrance Chamber. And some of the language that is used by our county is incorrect. And we had to bring it up. Like they said, all bars, breweries, and wineries are closed. And I just want to explain this. A bar might be closed, but a brewery who manufactures beer and has retail sales to go, and same with the winery, they are still open. They're not open for consumption. So you can't go there and get your pint of beer or your glass of wine. A restaurant, when it said all restaurants are closed, they're closed for indoor dining. If they happen to have a patio, and if they choose, they don't have to, it's not mandated, but if they want to, they can have patio dining. And they're still available to do curbside pickup, and they're still available to do to go. So when these orders come out and they put it like on the county's Facebook page, it creates a lot of confusion. So closed is only closed for the areas that they're concerned about. They're still able to open. It's not like, because literally my friend was at a restaurant that shut the door the minute the governor made the announcement.
Well, and we want to, Nancy, also, I mean, I wish that the media would pick up what Supervisor Barger said, because the media all day, all morning has been touting this 50% bad businesses from that report. And so if they're showing new reports, let's get it to the media. Let's show the media these businesses, or show them these great businesses we have that are so safe. It's safer than going grocery shopping.
Well, and I'm going to write back to the supervisor's office and mention that. And I'm going to bring up and kind of give us a challenge, because we have done this with Safe Small Business Coalition, is on Fridays, we do an Open for Business Friday where we highlight a different industry and we talk about why, like the America's Recovery Fund is important. I think we need to get our businesses. So if anyone that's watching right now wants to be a spokesperson, chime in, and we could do an interview with you, whether we do it here like we're doing a live stream, whether we put it on a video and post it on all of our pages. We want to hear from you why this 3-point plan can work for you, how it can help you, how it can help you sustain your business and keep your workers employed. And I don't think we have anything else though. Was that my good ending?
Yeah, that was perfect. But yep. Colin could pitch for those stories too, just like you said, Nancy, those stories about expense. Send them in to us. But I want to thank Nancy Hoppen Van for hosting this and really encouraging us to do this, and Colin for his leadership with Westside Council of Chambers. We really couldn't do this without the collective support of all these organizations and you businesses out there. We need your help too. So thank you for what you do in leading your communities.
So
Likewise, Jen.
So I'm going to end this, but I'm going to ask you guys, don't you leave the meeting. We'll stay in the room for a minute and we'll talk about that next step so that if we're going to come back, we can put it into I can put it into the chat for everyone. So
Perfect.
again, I want to just make sure there's no comments or questions, and we don't have any right now. So I want to thank everyone for being here. Enjoy your day, and I'm going to end this broadcast. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank
you.
you.